Lovely to be with many, many friends and many new friends too. For those of you I don't yet know, haven't yet had the pleasure of sitting with you. I'm excited too. It's always lovely to be here. So really thank you to IJS. Thank you to Andrew who's holding the space technically. I'm going to share something, a little Torah and some ideas that will kind of lead into the intention for the sit. Some of you may know there's a very beautiful and beloved book by Rabbi Alan Liu of blessed memory, Zichron Livracha, called This Is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared, about the high holidays, about how Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and that time of year is a very powerful opportunity for transformation and healing in our lives. I've read it many times and really highly recommend it. I'm sure many of you already know it. What is not as well known is that this time of year we're in right now, the month of Adar that we're in now, on I think the 4th of Adar, maybe tonight I begin the 5th of Adar here, is an equally powerful opportunity for transformation and healing, according to our calendar, according to our mystics. I'll give just a couple of ideas about why that is and why it's actually very parallel to the opportunity to return to a realign that we have in the autumn, in the fall. First of all, our sages tell us in the Talmud that there's an argument about when the world is created. And some think that it's created in the fall, in the autumn months, or of the 1st of Tishrei, around that time, that Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the creation of the world. But there's also another opinion that the world is actually created in the spring, on the first day of Nisan, the month of Pesach, that we're headed towards after Adar. This year we have 2 Adars, so we have a little more build up to it. But the month of Nisan, the month of Pesach, being the month of creation, makes so much sense, given that our calendar is based on the land of Israel. And for those of you who live in the Northern Hemisphere too, where most of you are right now, you look around in the springtime and you see life bursting into manifestation. And that indeed is what our sages say. They say that the creation that happens in the autumn, in the fall, is actually a creation on the level of intention or thought, but the actual manifestation, the actual little bunnies bouncing around and the new lambs and the flowers blooming and all that stuff, that happens in the spring. And that is the creation that we are now preparing ourselves for. And the sages also tell us that there were 2 months of the year where the people who worked in the fields came in from the fields, if they possibly could, and just focused on learning Torah, on learning wisdom, and on reflecting and on their inner work, reflecting more on their inner life and less on their outer work. And those 2 months are Elul, which is the month preceding Rosh Hashanah, the month leading up to the high holidays, and this month now of Adar. Again, this year we have 2 Adars because it's a leap year, so we have double the opportunity to do this work. So what is Adar an opportunity for? And actually, this double opportunity we have this year, what can it give us? Well, Adar, the full moon festival of Adar, is Purim, and Purim must always fall on the full moon immediately before Pesach. That is written in stone in our calendar. Even though there are 2 Adars, there is never any doubt or flexibility there. Adar, it can never be on the first Adar if there are 2 Adars, for example, or any other day. It must always be on the full moon, before the full moon of Passover. So why? What does it give us? Well, the full moon represents the climax, the peak, the apogee of the energy and the opportunity of the month. But the whole month, and again, this year, 2 months, is actually full of this energy and these opportunities. There are 2 main ones I see. We're going to practice with one of them. The first one I want to mention, though, because it's also very important in our lives and our practice, is not knowing. One of the main themes of Purim and of this time is to let go of what we think we know, limiting beliefs and limiting stories. And this makes so much sense when we look at how our mystics view Pesach as very much an exercise in deep narrative therapy. They see Pesach as an opportunity to speak ourselves into a new reality, to say, this is my story. Think about what we do on Seder night. We sit around the table, we tell the story of liberation, and by telling the story, we make ourselves more free. So to prepare ourselves for that, our mystics say we first have to let go of all the stuff that we think that keeps us from fully letting go of the inner Egypt, the inner Mitzrayim, the inner constriction, the inner slavery. And it's a constant process. Nobody's ever finished with this. Every year we go round and round because there's always more work to do. So that's part one. And we could sit with that. We're not going to sit with that tonight, but that is a very great practice for this time of year. sitting with not knowing, letting go of what we think we know, letting go of certainty. And there are practice instructions for that available online in many places, including I've written some and put them online, but there are many, if you Google it, you'll find it from also from the Jewish tradition, but also from others too. What I want to sit with tonight is simcha. Simcha, the major theme of Adar, is usually translated as joy, but translating a word as joy is complicated because first of all, we have like 1,000 words for joy. So what does it really mean? Like we also have so many others. What are they all trying to say to us? And also, we're told that when we enter the month of Adar, we increase in joy. Now, how can it possibly be that what we usually call joy is something that I can just click my fingers and increase in just because somebody tells me, the calendar tells me, doesn't really work like that. So there's another way of understanding simcha I'd like to share and that we can sit with, and that is to cultivate okayness. And another way of saying okayness is safety. Another way of saying that is acceptance of what is happening. And there's a very beautiful teaching I came across that actually says the Hebrew word, the root of the Hebrew word for joy, simcha, is sin, mem, chet, samach. And there's another Hebrew word which sounds the same, but is written with different letters, which is also samach. It's with a samach, mem, chaf, instead of sin, mem, chet. And these words don't look alike, but they sound alike. And there are teachings which say that they actually, the similarity in sound is like they're an echo of each other. They're also related in meaning. And what does samach mean with a samach mem chaf? It actually means to trust or to rely or to depend on. And so that's part of the practice we're gonna experience tonight. We're gonna sit with whatever is going on inside ourselves, and then we're gonna see what happens if we bring in that intention to be okay, to be accepting, to let be, to trust, to rely on what is, as an exercise, as a practice of cultivating as much simcha as we can. But let's bring our attention inside ourselves, find a posture that's comfortable for us to sit. And while we're getting settled, I'll mention that simcha is connected over and over and over again throughout our tradition, from the Tanakh, from the Hebrew Bible, through our ancient sages and through our mystics, to intimacy with the Shekhinah, the divine presence. The simcha is seen as a indicator of intimacy with the divine presence. So as we're bringing our attention inside ourselves with this intention to be accepting, to cultivate a sense of trust and reliance on what is, if it works for you, if it's supportive for you, to imagine that what is actually a manifestation of the divine, of the Shekhinah, then you're very welcome to bring that intention to it as well. I suggest starting with an anchor. That's a place we can bring our attention safely. Perhaps a place in our body that's neutral. If you're not sure what to use, I suggest perhaps the feet or the elbows, if either of those is available for you to use. It doesn't bring out too much resistance. Our job is to bring our attention to the anchor, moment by moment. This is our safe home base. Of course, if our attention wanders at any time, which it surely will, and we can return here without judgment, with acceptance, and find safety. And for the rest of the sit, you're invited to let your attention open up from the anchor as much as you feel is safe and appropriate for you, to take in whatever else is going on in your physical sensations and your emotions, perhaps even in your thoughts, although that can be a little tricky. And if we ever feel lost or overwhelmed, we can come back to the anchor. But the key thing is this intention that whatever we experience, whether it's in our anchor or anywhere else in us, is to bring a sense of acceptance and okayness, to ask, can I be safe with this? And if it's a bit too much, that's fine. That's why we have the safe home base of the anchor to come back to and start again whenever we're ready. Let's sit in silence, cultivating this simcha, this inner sense of safety and intimacy with the Shekhinah. And let's very gradually bring the practice to a close. Take your time. Slowly bring yourself back. If you like, you can wiggle your fingers and toes. Bring yourself back to your regular way of being with your body. And feel welcome to breathe, stretch, yawn, sigh, any way that your body wants to. I'll hand it back to Rabbi Josh. Thank you, everyone, for your practice.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Really wonderful as always. Please stick around in a couple of minutes. We'll have a chance to share reflections or ask questions about your experience with the practice. If you need to leave us, we should say Tchem l'shalom, farewell. Hope you'll come back as soon as you can. We'll be back here same time, same channel. And in the meantime, we're going to have an opportunity for those who are saying Kaddish, remembering loved ones to do so. If you want to enter the name of anyone you are holding in mind or heart today, as you say Kaddish, please feel welcome to do that in the chat. And we're putting the text up here. And you're welcome to unmute and join me in reciting the Mornis Kaddish. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash, shnei Rabba, v'alma divrach, v'tei, v'yamlich mas'pei, v'chayecho, v'nechon, v'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael, v'gavam Yitbrach, v'yishtabach, Amen. Thank you, everyone. All right. So we'll bring Daniel back up to the screen with us. Thank you. All right. So the meeting of the Daniel Silverstein fan club is called to order. Thank you as always, Daniel. I think one of the things that just struck me about that practice is opening up the idea of Adar as this additional time of preparation, and I love that you started. I wasn't entirely sure when you mentioned this is real and you're completely real. So where's he going to go? Oh, okay, that's where he's going with this. So that was a delightful sort of surprise, and I wonder for folks on the call today, that how that resonated with you, as this being another sort of a mirror image or other end of the year. Elul and Adar, these 2 months sort of going together, and so would love to hear from folks, on the in the chat, how that landed for you. Is that a new thing? Was that is that something that lands immediately for you as this sort of preparatory time? There was a question here I see from Sarah that she had asked, would it be possible to share the source, the Kabbalistic source of joy and trust, right? You talked about simcha and micha, I guess, right? The reliance, those two words, that similarity sound more on the teaching of that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much for being here and this opportunity, and for your questions. The source which connects those two words that I came across was it's not an explicitly Kabbalistic source. It's from commentary on the Book of Psalms from Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who was a German rabbi in the 19th century. I think he might even be offended if somebody called him a Kabbalist, I believe. But a very different kind of approach, but a very rich one linguistically. He actually wrote an etymological dictionary of Hebrew, which has many fascinating connections in it. And so it's not the only one. It's not the only like surprise there that he brings. Also, I want to say I didn't know which source the request was for, so I put my email in the chat, and I'm happy to be in touch with people about that I was kind of referencing a lot of sources, about the rabbis saying the world is created in both these months, and we enter these months in joy. But also, there's an idea I didn't fully develop about the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the portable temple. Seems like such a anachronistic idea sometimes, this building from a long time ago. But actually, we're told that when the Mishkan, this temporary home for God, when it was inaugurated, it was a day of such rejoicing and healing, a day of tikkun olam, a day of fixing the world, because the divine presence for the first time was able to fully inhabit this world in the fullest sense. And that happens on the 1st of Nisan. So all of Adar, again, this year we have 2 Adars to do this, is preparation for that. And our rabbis tell us that now we don't have the physical Mishkan or temple, but the divine presence is going to dwell in us. So we're preparing our own containers. So this practice is also really about that. It's about preparing our containers to house the Shekhinah, the divine presence.
Beautiful. There's also a question Laura asked about, you mentioned Pesach, Passover, as a form of narrative therapy, right? Which it certainly resonates, and I want to invite you to say a little bit more about that, even though that's looking a little further ahead, but it's obviously part of the preparation you're talking about. Just Pesach as narrative therapy. You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, from the very beginning, what's staggering about the Seder night ritual of sitting around the table telling the story is the Jews did it in Egypt. Like they actually did this ritual even while they were still slaves. And so when we sit around the table every year, we're not just telling a story about something that happened. We're actually really immediately reenacting something they did. And the story is a central part of it. The story is a central thing that brings us back there. And the Kabbalists say there's a great Kabbalist called Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Arizal from Tzfat in northern Israel in the 1500s. He says that the word Pesach can be broken up into Pesach, the mouth speaks. And he says that's how important it is to this festival, this theme. It's actually all about what the power of speech does for us.
Yeah. And we can probably do a lot more with that, in terms of a lot of Hasidic teaching that's built around that. There's a great essay by Estelle Frankel on narrative therapy and sort of new Hasidism and new Hasidut and narrative therapy. You should check that out. She's done a lot of work on this too. So beautiful. And I wonder also, there's also this move, Daniel, that strikes me of Adar, and certainly in Purim, we make this very abrupt move. It almost seems like from Purim to Pesach we think of the divine being sort of most concealed during Adar, during Purim, especially Esther, concealment, etc., and then moving, very quickly to, very, very present and visible and powerful in the world at Pesach. And I wonder if that's also part of the story too, right? As part of the preparation. It's a different feeling. It's a different quality than Elul and Tishrei. And so that just comes to mind. I wonder what you think about that.
I actually, if I would have had more time, I would have talked about this. Purim is about playfulness and mystery. Like everything is hidden. Like Purim is a story about like backroom politics and sexual intrigue, God being hidden, like you said. And Adar also has that quality. In fact, I was going to bring this, but I didn't have time. This is from Jill Hammer's amazing book, Rabbi Jill Hammer, the book Jewish Book of Days. I cannot recommend this book enough. It's a one-page teaching on every day. She says about the 3rd of Adar, which we just passed. She says, Adar, the month of the folded tabernacle, is a month when the dwelling of the Shekhinah is still folded inside us, the way a seed or bulb's secrets are folded inside it. This may give us a deep joy and delight, or it may make us long for Nisan, when we will burst outward at last. And I just like, for me, that like really conveys like the joy, the celebration of this time, but also that it's like building towards something. And again, this is reflected in the seasons, like in what's going on, certainly here in the land of Israel, but I think in a lot of places in the Northern Hemisphere, we're not quite at the full blossoming of spring yet, right? Where we are building up to it. And there's actually a bit of a battle going on. In fact, Rabbi Jill suggests this is one of the kind of layers of the Purim story. It's a battle between Jack Frost winter figure and spring that really wants to come, and like, is it going to win? Spring always wins, spring always comes, but like there's a moment of tension, uncertainty, of doubt along the way.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and it goes back to the piece about not knowing that others have mentioned here, and that you talked about, right? Is like being able to hold with that uncertainty as a preparation for then, I wonder, right, being able to then enter something that feels like it is also potentially more certain, but we also know is like not entirely certain, right? It's like if we hold on too tightly to that can become its own form of idolatry, right? And so there's a looseness, not a looseness, but I often think about, in my own practice, I find one of the metaphors that comes up a lot is just applying the right amount of pressure, like holding something or holding with the right amount of pressure, not too little, not too much. And there's something in the extremities of Adar and Nisan that in between that, is trying to find something that is the right amount of pressure, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, very much resonate with that. And, along those lines, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the great Hasidic master, said that he used to say that all beginnings were from Pesach, that everything began at Pesach. But he says now everything starts with Purim. He's like realized at some point that he has, like, Purim is like the essential pre-Pesach experience to do some letting go, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a question here from Carol. It says, there's a great conversation happening in the chat, by the way, and nice job to Andrew, as always, Johnny on the spot there with the name of Jill Hammer's book. But there's a question about a quote from Alan Liu's book related to allowing the tension of joy in suffering. I'm not sure we mentioned that quote necessarily, but something about the tension of joy in suffering. I'm not sure, Carol, Dang, is that resonating with you?
I didn't mention it, but I'm happy to try and speak to it if
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
That's fine. Joy, I said we have a lot of words for joy, and joy might not be the most helpful translation of simcha in a lot of contexts. Sasson, for example, sasson is also mentioned in relation to Purim, means like, I just won the lottery, something great just happened, the Jews were all just saved, etc. Like, I just got good news. But simcha has this quality where we're actually expected to have simcha going on all the time, like a steady underlying quality. And so that means, that's why I was talking about it in terms of like steadiness, reliance, acceptance, okayness, because that means even when we're feeling suffering, even when we're having discomfort or any kind of unpleasant experience, we are, I think, being asked to cultivate simcha, which is a sense of being as okay as we can with it in that moment, which might be only a tiny bit. If it's very, very hard, we're not being asked to be, or doing this work all at once. But I think it's something we're being asked to cultivate gradually, steadily, so that when the challenges come, we're more able to hold them. And I would say that about pain. I would say, if we cultivate that sense of being able to hold experience, whatever it is, then we can then apply it to pain when it comes, to the degree that we practice with it.
Yeah. Right. Okayness and equanimity. That's nice to us. Yeah. And I think about
very related. Yeah.
And I think of the line from, it's Rabbi Nachman, I think, popularized it, but mitzvah gedolah liot b'simchat tamid, right? It's a great mitzvah to always be in a state of, or cultivating that state of simcha, which you talked a little bit about on the state yesterday as well. Susan has a question here. Can you speak to any connections between these two themes of not knowing and what is hiding or sleight of hand and mystery? I don't think that's a question from another time. I think that's exactly um yeah, what comes to mind for you in that question there?
You know, we have so many experiments that psychologists have done which show that when we think we know what the answer is, we often blind ourselves to seeing what it actually is. So that for me is the connection. When I let go of what I think is so certain, then I can see what's actually right in front of me, but I couldn't see before. And that's the
Mm,
Purim story, right? Like you never would have imagined, you know, it's like a farcical, childish pantomime, the way things all come about from the back, from behind, all this intrigue, but then it just comes, all right? And our tradition says a lot of things in reality are actually like that, but we have to, you know, we wear masks on Purim also to teach us this. We have to recognize a lot of things are masked and not clear, and we have to, you know, put the mask on to take off the mask sometimes to get clearer about that.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting also that playfulness is also part of Pesach too. And from there's a gamification on the night before Pesach of searching for chametz, and then there's of course just the involvement of children, and again searching for the afikomen at the seder, or the ways that we make. Many of us have made games or playfulness, and certainly playfulness in the wordplay that happens at the seder. That's a through line really from these two ends of the calendar. And I think again it goes to the holding lightly, not that a firm grip is very hard to play with, right? And you have to have a certain lightness of being in order to be playful, and there's a real spiritual disposition around that we're trying to cultivate, I think, holding it with in that way.
And I would add to that like a major theme of both festivals, certainly when you add the midrashic interpretation of the Megillah and look closely at how the rabbis comment on it, is children and our inner child and our relation to our inner child and how the festivals are celebrated. I see that as very connected to the fact that they're festivals of re-beginning, you know, that we're supposed to be getting in touch with, again, the not knowing of a child. And then the narrative therapy is an exercise in rebirth. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very much about that relationship.
Beautiful, beautiful. And there's some great, Harris, thank you for sharing. A lot of people are here sharing. There we go. A couple quotes from Alan Liu, and Sarah had a question about how does the concept of osher compare with sason and simcha. This is fine linguistic honing here. It sounds like. I wonder, what do you think about that? Where osher fits in that?
So Osher for me also has connotations of fullness and like
Abundance, maybe. Yeah,
abundance, right? Exactly. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So that's beautiful and that's amazing. I would say that's its dominant sense. And simcha, like I said, sorry, sason is like, you know, I just heard good news. I'm just, you know, elated. Simcha, this kind of like ongoing study. You know, we also have Gila and Rina and you know Chedva and many others. I'm not sure I actually could do justice to translating all of them so precisely. I haven't done that work. I've just, you know, Simcha's the one I've kind of been really paying attention to.
Mm. And Rabbi mentions today is right is in the Christian tradition, in the Catholic tradition is Fat Tuesday or the day before Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent, which, by the way, when you think about Mardi Gras and you think about topsy-turviness and dressing up, absolutely is related to Purim, right? These are both spring topsy-turvy carnival type festivals, and they share some common roots in that. And so yeah, but you want that, you can go to the Institute for Christian Spirituality. I'm sure they have a nice set at the same time. All right, Claire, last question. Everyone wants to know if you have any hip hop for us today.
Um, there's a rap I thought was relevant in this practice. Do we have time for it?
Go for it. Go for
Okay, let's do it.
Always time for it.
Everything I think I want, when I look inside, I've got. Everything I think I need, it's already all in me. Everything I think I want, when I look inside, I've got. Everything I think I need, It's already all in me. There are times you can find me in bed with my mind ever striving for somewhere over the horizon, thoughts and emotions spiral, programmed to pine for an item that seems so vital. We don't mean to tell ourselves lies when discomfort arises. Our mind just tries to be kind. We search for a pattern that we've used in the past to keep us from feeling this feeling so sharp. What is it? Pain, discomfort, anxiety, fear of not being the person I try to be, some deep story picked up in my childhood, somebody treated me like I'm not good enough. I'm calling its bluff. I'm me now and I deal with my stuff. Find the hurt part of me, focus and start to be loving. Let it just pump through my arteries. We're all just perfectly human and perfect. None of us did anything to deserve this. Trauma, love, pain, ecstasy, the potential of every moment's intensity. So when I find my mind in that planning and scheming, that's a reminder back to my breathing, back to the present. Notice the feelings, the thing I was trying to flee that needs healing. The fact I can feel it means that I'm ready. I'm in control now, holding you steady. Show it some patience, kind curiosity. You're my teacher. What have you got for me? Something that's in me that's always been hidden, that secretly shaped everything that I did. And now I can see you, hear you and breathe you, let you come into me. Now we're a we. Everything I think I want, when I look inside, I've got. Everything I think I need, it's already all in me. Everything I think I want, when I look inside, I've got. Everything I think I need, it's already all in me.
Beautiful. Daniel, thank you so much. Always so wonderful to have you here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. And until then, hope everyone is safe and well and cultivate some simcha, some joy today.
Thanks
Thanks so
Rabbi.
much.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Thank you, everybody.